Aslan Al Sufyan. It's important that you understand me. You need to understand that it took a lot of work for me. So for you, it would take a lot of work. Bruce Lee didn't get good from one kick. So don't think anybody gets good doing it one time. The more you do the same thing, the more you become a master. The more you do different things, you'll never become a master. A master is the master of the same. And therefore, there is no difference. There's only uniqueness. So for us to understand this dichotomy, in the scientific community, you have something called the mind-body complex. And this is a fallacy dipped in truth. So what we want to understand is that we got to wipe the falsehood off and keep the truth. Spit out the falsehood, swallow the truth. So the biggest problem that every person will face if they have no inkling of being birthed into existence is that you will have the mind and self dichotomy. If you grow up in a society that does not understand the distinction between mind and the self, then your society will have you confused. And that's the problem with North America. They have no distinction between the self, the mind, consciousness, the brain, spirit, soul. They lump all this thing into one. And therefore, you confuse by mixing one thing for another. And so you call the mind the self and you call the self the mind. This is just how confusion happens. You, like me, have to remove your own ignorance through knowledge and wisdom. Only way it's going to happen. Only way it's going to happen. It is not the mind body. Your mind body is good. Trust indeed. Heaven on earth. It's the mind and the self. You don't know these two distinctions. These two are not the same. Now, in different philosophies, they swap this word because I've read the scholarship. So I know from myself reading the literature. So reading the literature and then finding out the literature has a language, you come to find out a lot. So to save alone things, all languages don't deliver you the direct truth. Most languages are coded, parables. So you got to keep unloosening to the truth. And so, as myself, if you went on the journey, you would find know thyself. So if you go into know thyself, and let's just say you type that in on the computer not knowing, then you're going to get led to many various routes. And so you don't know yourself what these terms are, and so these people are now finna redefine these terms for you. and tell you something you don't even know to know if they even know. So this is where confusion happens. So in most Indian philosophies, if you are in a study of Indian philosophy and you hear names such as the Atman, you hear names such as the Brahman, these names are other languages, ways of bringing different words in English to understanding. So in the terms of mind, they use mind as well in the language once it's translated in English. And in English, you got mind in its own separate sets of definition for whatever category of philosophy is being dealt with. So there's a variety of ranges that you can learn, and it may not ever be the truth. But the part is you learning. And that's the great part, because the truth will reveal itself through learning. As you learn the truth, you will be able to spot a lie. It's just as simple and just as easy. But we have been intercepted by philosophies, such as the Indian philosophy, and it deals with the self. This is why we want to bring in the Indian philosophy, because it brings in the self. And it swaps the self for the mind. And so by the time you leave out of there, you think you have an awareness of what self is, but that awareness is what mind is. What you would think is what self is. So you go around calling self what mind is and calling mind what self is. And this is the dichotomy that people are having. They don't know the distinction. And without distinction brings suffering. If you don't stop suffering from pressing up on you, it's going to merge with you. So to stop it from merging with you is called distinction. I'm not that. I'm not this. That's not self. This not self. And so these conversations become realms of thinking. So the complex is the mind and the self complex. The mind and the body is not a complex, that's a simplex. The complex is the mind and the self. Now in a few breaths, because this is what all it takes. It's a few breaths, and for you to understand. The self is the complex by itself. The mind is simple by itself. What makes the mind complex is when the self takes over. Now things are complex because self doesn't know itself, because it thinks it's itself when it doesn't know itself. See the dichotomy? So what you're speaking from is not you, but you think it's you because you don't know the self. And so you got to be careful in these high ranges of what they call an esoterica or esotericism. Because in occult sciences, metaphysics, esoterics, These are trap doors, and very powerful spirits are behind them that are filled with ignorance. These spirits are already past and dead. You living. So you got to be careful. You could be taking in ideas from the dead, the ones that's no longer living. Because we ain't going to get into the other side then, how you don't die, but we'll get to that as you can understand that you're not that. What you need to figure out is what is self. And then you will figure out what's not self. And all your problems and suffering will end by the simple fact of reminding. The sacred act of reminding. Any comments, leave them. Anything that was missed. Of course, a lot of things was missed in others' perspective. But the point is always one. When you know yourself, then you'll know the one. As-salam, As-salam, Al Sufyan.